go. Okay, so feel free to have your video on. If you have any questions, you can always sneak in and go unmute to ask a question. Like it's fine with me if you need to interrupt. In terms of props, you could use some blocks. You could use some pillows to support your body. Sometimes a rolled up towel or a sweater works as well. I'll try to cue as we go. Today's class is going to be very foundational, so we're not going to be doing any crazy twists and turns and upside downs and all that stuff. But the blocks do help with providing that little bit extra support. So I have myself spotlit, so nobody can see you unless they're on gallery mode. I'm on gallery mode down here, so I can watch each of you. I'll give you one of those. So thank you for joining today's yoga class. It's so exciting. I just started my teacher training a year ago, basically at the beginning of December. So this is the culminating activity. We have to teach a class. We have to give it away for free so that everybody gets to benefit from it. You'll get the recording. So if you've signed up, I'll make sure that I send the recording to you. So feel free to follow up on that. I'm not sending the recording out until mid-January. So you'll have to wait a couple of days until you get that. So yeah, we're gonna start in a seated position. Start in a seated position. If you like to sit on something to lift your hips up, take some pressure off the low back, then you can. There you go. So we're just gonna get comfortable in a seated. I know a couple of you are like, I really wanna lie down. Feel free to lie down. The beauty of this is that I'm just your guide. You can do whatever you like. So you could lie down on your mat and just lie there for an entire hour, and that would be totally fine as well. So we're starting in seated, and I just want to remind you that this is self-guided, so I can see you. I'm going to try to give some modifications and some assistance for you, but it is difficult with such a large class. So I'll do my best to provide some feedback. Normally what I end up doing is direct the whole class to make that little bit of an adjustment, and then we go from there. So in terms of it being self-guided, listen to your body. So I'm going to give you some benchmarks. We're going to start really foundational so that we'll make sure we get all the little pieces, and we'll build off of that. And if you find that, say, level 1 feels really good for you, it's a good challenge, there's no need to move to level 2. And if you were to repeat this routine over and over again, you'll notice that some days you might go to level 3, and some days you're like, yeah, level 1, I just want to stick there, nice and simple. This is going to be an hour class. I'm not going to limit myself to 60 minutes though, because I feel like I'm going to get really into it. So if it rolls over a little bit, I'm sorry. I'm excited. I'm just too excited to share it all with you. And we're going to start and end the class either seated or lying down during a breathing activity. So it'll be quiet, it'll be slow. So I invite you to come out of that at any point if you're like, no, I can't sit that long, it's not my jam, or I'm uncomfortable for whatever reason. All the supine postures, so lying on your back postures, can be completed seated or standing. So just in case I don't cue that, which I'm going to, know that those are an option for you, because I know some of you can't be on your backs right now for various reasons. And the theme of today's class is going to be grounding. So I know that I had mentioned that this is for curlers and for athletes, but really the theme will transcend regardless of what sport or activity or stage of life that you're in. So the theme is going to be grounding. We're going to use the literal ground, figurative ground, because it's not outside. Your mat, if you have one, a towel, if you're using a towel. We're going to use that and use the energy through the body to just feel light and focused and move forward. So in terms of how this applies to your day-to-day life, when we are grounded, it allows us to find a little bit more stillness. When we find a little bit more stillness, we can make really good decisions. We're emotionally regulated. And if you're an athlete, we have that opportunity to tap into that ideal performance state. Okay. So in seated, of course, if you need breaks for water at any point, take them. Okay, the nice thing is if this is recorded for you, you could hit pause and run away and come back. I'll give a couple water breaks as we go. So we're going to start with seated. It's just a little bit easier than lying on our back today. So however you want to sit, legs crossed, feet out, propped up on a bolster. Okay. Okay. And you're gonna take your hands on, face down on your thighs. Okay, so we're gonna allow your eyes to focus on an object out in front of you. And if, as you focus on that object, your eyes start to close, you have the option to close them if that feels right. And then whether your eyes are open or closed, I want you to feel the weight of gravity pulling your body down to the floor or the mat or the seat below you. Okay, and maybe it starts to slump everything forward. Like the gravity is pretty heavy, body's being pulled down. And I want you to start to feel the points of contact with the floor or the mat or the ground. So for me, it's my ankles, my sit bone, maybe my hands. I can feel my hands pressing down onto my legs. And I want you to start to bring your attention into your breath. So we don't need to do anything with the breath, but if you notice on each inhale, it's like there's two balloons in your rib cage. So your rib cage can expand, and then it can contract and shrink. And if you think of pressing down through the floor, the contact with the ground, and those balloons lifting your rib cage up and out, maybe you start to feel a little bit taller. And then lastly, we want to feel our head as if it's a hot air balloon. It's just floating above us. We don't need to use the shoulders or the neck muscles to sit. Take one more nice big breath in. So big as in large volume. Feel the ribs expand. If you can, feel the belly expand. And then we're going for a full exhale. Just lengthening up through the top of the head. So we're grounding through what's touching the floor and up through the top of the head. Okay. We're going to take our palms facing the ceiling out alongside our body. So your eyes can be closed or open if you'd like. And we're going to breathe in and sweep our hands up over our head, reach them up as high as they can. Bring the palms together, your thumbs to your chest as you exhale. There you go. We'll do that 2 more times. Arms out to the side, breathing in. And breathing out. We want the breath to be in and out the nose as much as possible. So breathing in and breathing out. And the exception to that is that we're going to exhale out the mouth on a recovery breath, which we'll start with. So we'll open up the hands, breathing in, reaching up. This time, let the hands go out reverse, back to your side as you exhale out your mouth. Okay, we're going to take ourselves into a tabletop position. So again, moving with that theme of grounding. So we'll use the hands and the feet to ground here. So in a tabletop position, we want to try to stack the shoulders over the wrists and knees underneath the hips. Okay, and for some people, if it's too much on the wrist, we actually turn the pointer fingers towards the top corner of the mat. And maybe move them hands out a little bit wider. Okay, so we're going to go through something called an all-four position. So that's that scared cat position. So I want you to point the toenails down into the ground. Start to press through the toenails as you tuck your tail under. And then press through your hands and tuck your chin. So we're rounding the back like a bridge or a scared Halloween cat. I'm going to take 2 breaths here. And when you breathe in, see if you can breathe into the back side of the rib cage where our bra strap might go. So breathing in. And then when you exhale, we're trying to press more through the toenails and the whole palm. 1 more breath in. And breath out. Good. Coming back into that tabletop. So that's where the spine is a little bit more parallel to the ground. So we're going to move through a cat and cow position. We're going to do it 3 times. We're going to build the amount of flexion and extension that you're comfortable with each time. So you'll need to go into crazy amounts of flexion and extension. We'll start really small. So we tuck our toes, and then we're going to slowly lift the sit bones up as we breathe in and reach the breastbone forward. So we're going to press through the hands. So there might be a little bit of a concave in the low back here. And then reversing that back to that scared cat. We exhale, point the toes, tuck the tail, pull the ribs in, and then press through the floor, tuck the chin. Okay, so we start with the feet each time. We're gonna link the breath, breathing in through the chest, tuck the toes, lift the sit bones, lift the breastbone, reach the hands forward. So we're using the hands and the feet to find that space. Breathing out, point the toes, tuck the tail, bring the ribs in, bring the chin in, press through the hands. One more time, inhaling, toes flip, sit bones lift, breastbone reaches forward. Good, and exhale, point the toes, tuck the tail, round the spine. Good. From here, we're coming into a neutral, halfway between that scared cat and that cow pose. And we can walk our hands forward a couple of inches, and then we're going to use our hands to push the hips back towards our heels. So we don't necessarily have to be all the way forward into a child's pose. Give yourself the option of head onto one or two stacked fists. Maybe you have a stacked fist on your forehead and on your chin. And maybe if it feels right, you reach your hands forward and support the ground, your forehead with the floor. This is a child's pose. And we're gonna make sure that we connect in with the breath a little bit. So on your exhale, just paying attention to the start and the end of that exhale 3 times. So we follow the breath in. And then notice where the exhale starts and ends. One more time. Good. Once you complete your exhale, press yourself back up to that tabletop. So I have 3 options for what's considered our typical salutation of sorts. So we're going to go through each one so that you know which ones you have options moving forward. So number 1, we start in that tabletop, we tuck that toes, we lift the sit bones and breathe in we find that cow, we breathe out, we tuck the tail around the spine, we find the scared cat. Okay, and then we tuck the toes and use the hands to push yourself back into a child's pose. So you can keep your head up here, you don't have to go all the way forward. Okay, so we're gonna do that one more time. So we come back to our tabletop, we tuck the toes, we lift the sit bones, we reach the breastbone forward. We breathe out, we point the toes, we tuck the tail, round the spine, tuck the chin. Tuck the toes, come back into a tabletop, and use your hands to push your hips towards your heels. So you can go all the way down to a child's pose if you like. Option 2, so we're going to repeat that. Option 2, it starts in our tabletop. We walk our knees back a couple of inches. And instead of the cat-cow, we pull our body forward and bend the elbows into a push-up as low as you feel comfortable. Press yourself back up. And then push yourself back to that child's pose. Okay. So again, repeating option 1, the cat-cow. Or coming forward, we can repeat the push-up. And pressing ourselves back to the child's pose. Good, so we're slowly introducing movement into the shoulders and the hips with these 2. Okay, option 3. Okay, repeating cat-cow, child's pose, or push-up child's pose, or bending the elbows and lowering your body all the way to the ground. So pointing the toes, contracting the quads and squeezing the glutes. We want to use the back side of the body to find length in the front side. So squeeze the elbows towards each other and point them back towards your back pockets. This is a baby cobra. Take a breath in. Exhale, we lower the forehead down, tuck the toes. Okay. Press through the hands, the feet, and the knees. Press yourself back up and meet in that child's pose. Okay, so there's an option with the baby cobra. Nice little baby cobra. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, bend the elbows, hug them into your side, point the toes, squeeze the glutes, point the elbows back, breath in. Exhale, lower the forehead, tuck the toes, press yourself back up to child's pose. Okay. Option 3, maybe option 4, be coming forward. Lift the knees up off the ground into a high plank. So feel free to combine the different options to find the one that works best for you. Okay, if we're going through our upward facing dog, we're actually going to use the hands to lift the hips a couple of inches. And then bend the elbows and hug the elbows into your body as you imagine yourself going under a fence. And press through the hands. We're going to keep our toes tucked under, squeeze the glutes. Breathe into the chest. Exhale, press down through the hands and your feet to find a high plank. We either meet in child's pose or use the hands to push back into a downward facing dog, where we're ripping the floor apart. Feet press the body forward, hands press the hips back. And it's as if I'm there and I grab you by the sit bones and lift the sit bones up. From here, take a breath in through the nose and a breath out through the mouth. We're going to make our way to standing at the back of the mat. Okay, so if you're in a downward facing dog, you're going to walk your hands back towards your feet. And if you're in a tabletop, you can come into a seated position back on your hips and then make your way to standing. So whatever feels right for you to get yourself to the back of your mat. Okay. And we're going to go through a forward fold. So you could do a forward fold where you're supporting your body on a chair or a table. Okay, we're going to start with our feet hip bone distance apart, and we're going to take the forearms on our thighs. We're going to press through the hands and round the spine a little bit. So we're supporting our body in this bit of a forward fold. Bend the knees as much as you feel comfortable. Give your head a little shake left and right like you're saying no. Maybe nod it up and down like you're saying yes. And then relax your head down and swallow once or twice to relax the back of the neck. I want you to shift the weight forward into the fronts of your feet, so not the heels. And as you press through your forearms, try to lift the sit bones up towards the ceiling. Again, relax the head. When the body weight's forward, we activate the quads, which allows us to relax the muscles in the front of the back of the legs. And you use that exhale, that recovery exhale here. Take a breath in. And a big sigh exhale. Think of pushing through the ground as you lift your sit bones up. All right, now, pressing through your feet, bend your knees. Keep your arms on your thighs. Okay, if you need to go hands on your thighs first, you can. We're going to reach the hands up like we're sitting in a chair. So your level of bend in the knees is up to you. Okay, so this is a good position if you've got a roller or a block to give a little squeeze into the inner thighs here. Could be a pillow. If you have nothing, you imagine squeezing everything towards each other. So we're squeezing together, we're pressing through the feet, and then we're reaching up through our hands. If you're not happy with hands over your head, hands can be at your shoulders or out to the side. So I challenge you to press down through your feet as you sit into that imaginary chair and reach your fingertips up. Take a breath in and exhale. All right. We're going to straighten the legs. Feel free to leave the block there as an option and bring your hands out to your side. So the block just gives a little bit extra stability through the pelvis. Okay, and we're going to press through your feet. So feet hip bone distance apart. Making sure we've tucked our tail underneath and give that block, or the imaginary block, a little bit of a squeeze. So we've rooted through the toes, rooted through the heels, we've squeezed our inner thighs, and we've got our glutes on, and we're going to spread our hands out to the sides. This is a mountain pose. If you think back to our seated position where we pushed through the ground, okay, where we breathed into the ribs, and our head was floating like a helium balloon. So we're using that grounding from the floor to reach up through the top of the head. So if we reverse that and we kind of slouch everything down, we actually get a little bit taller when we push through the feet, activate your inner thighs, spread your fingers, breathe into the ribs, and then reach up to the top of the head. Okay, so we are going to go back down to the ground and do one of the three options of that little core flow. And if you're like, I don't want to do that today, you can stay in mountain. You just feel that connection through the feet. Okay, so whether you have the block between your inner thighs or not, you can keep it there or lose it if you like. We're going to reach our hands up over our head. We're going to bend our knees. We're going to bring our arms back to our thighs. Relax the head. Good. Breathe in. Exhale first. Press to the fronts of your feet as you lift your sit bones up. And then drop the hips and walk the hands forward. So we're going to make ourselves to a high plank. And you can keep the block between the inner thighs for that little extra adductor inner thigh activity. Okay. You have the options of going down into the cat-cow and the child's pose, lowering to Cobra, or using the hands to lift the hips, pull the body under the fence, and then inhaling into an upward dog. All three options perfectly fine. All are flexion and extension of the spine. Take a breath in. And exhale, bend your knees, push yourself back into child's pose or downward facing dog. Wherever you are, take a breath in through the nose. And a breath out through the mouth. We're going to take about a 30-second break, either staying in down dog for that little extra challenge, staying in child's pose, or grab some water. Get some liquids. How are we doing so far? Everybody looks great. Getting thumbs up, good. Beautiful. Okay, so once you're done meeting in child's pose or down dog, so those that I can see on the screen, once I see you in one of those positions, or of course you could have been standing in mountain, that's fine too. We'll go from there. Okay, we're gonna do the spinal flexion extension down dog to standing one more time. And then we're going to go through some standing poses, some standing balance poses. Okay, so once everybody that's on the screen is in child's pose or down dog. No, we're good. Okay, take a nice breath in through the nose. Unhinge the jaw, relax the jaw, exhale. And then resume breathing in and out your nose. We're going to find either from child's pose, bring your knees to the ground, push yourself to tabletop. From down dog, we're going to walk your hands back towards your feet. This time, you have the option of being in that wide leg, the hips, feet hip distance apart, forward fold with your arms on your thighs, or big toes touching, knees touching, bend your knees and bring your belly to your thighs. So a forward fold is always supported to protect the lower back. We don't want to have space here. We want to keep that nice space. So whichever forward fold you're in, take a breath in. Exhale. Okay. If you're in the wider leg, you're going to come into that chair pose. And if you're in that forward fold, we're going to find a half back. So you're going to bring your hands to your thighs, shift the weight into the fronts of your feet, and reach the top of the head forward. So we want our back parallel to the ground. And if we have a little bend in our knees, the weight's forward in the feet, we'll get that nice hamstring stretch here. So taking a breath in. Exhale, bend and forward fold one more time. And then drop the hips. Reach the hands up over your head. So this time your feet are together. Okay, you could bring the block back in between if you like. Okay, and then we're going to open our hands to the side. So mountain pose one more time where we press through the feet, spread the fingers, get a little inner thigh stability. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go from this mountain pose into a couple balancing poses. So if you need to be near a wall or a stable chair, you can for a couple little balancing poses. I want you to find your right foot. I want you to find your heel, the ball of the big toe, and the ball of the baby toe. You're just going to shift your weight into that foot. So this alone is balancing, being able to have a kickstand, lift the foot up and down, and keep it nice and simple. Okay? Now I want to make sure we don't have our pelvis dumping forward. Tuck that tail under so that particularly on this right foot that's on the ground, we feel stable through the glute. Okay? If it feels right, you're going to raise the left foot up, trying to bring the leg to as close to parallel as you feel comfortable. Now opening both hips, We can bring our foot to the shin below the knee or the thigh above the knee, whichever one you find. We're going to squeeze the legs together. So right shin, left foot squeezing together, and we're keeping the tail tucked, so we're really stable. We're grounding through our roots. We're creating a tree here. Okay, so we can keep your hands on your hips. You can hold the wall, or you can spread those roots out to the side. And then challenge yourself. Find one point to look at in front of you. And if it feels right, you can raise your hands up over your head. So your roots are reaching down, and then your branches are reaching for the sky or out to the side. So we have that one point that we're staring at, nice and strong and stable. And if you'd like, maybe look an inch or two higher than that point. Maybe walk your gaze up to the point where you're looking between your hands. Keep pushing down through that foot, reach the fingertips. And then reverse that, bringing your gaze back to that original point, reaching the hands out to the side. We'll go hands on your hips as we reach the left knee forward. We'll just shake out that right foot for a moment, in case we spent a little bit too much time on it. And then we're going to return to that single leg position that we started with. So our back foot, in this case, the left foot, is balancing. Okay, so actually let's do that. Let's do left side actually. I want to go back and forth and even out the side because I know some of you are going to feel that balance on that one foot. So left foot tree pose first. So heel, ball of the big toe, ball of the baby toe, tuck the tail under, balance on the one foot. You can hold the wall, raise the right leg up, open up both hips, and then connect above the knee or below the knee, but squeeze the inner thighs together. Okay, so we're opening up the hip, but we're still stabilizing through the midline. So that energy is going from the foot to the foot and the thigh, or the inner thigh, to the glutes, to the ribs. We spread the fingers. Maybe we reach those branches up nice and high. Notice if the breath gets out of whack. It gets quick and loud. If you can slow it down just a little bit as you slowly, if it feels right, trace the gaze up between the hands. So we're rooting and grounding through that foot. We've got balloons in our chest. Nice strong fingers. And then reversing that, bringing that point that we're staring at back to the ground. Did we do palms to our chest last time? No, my arms out to the side, good. Perfect, from here, hands to your hips, right knee forward, and then place it down before we give it a bit of a shake. Perfect. So we're gonna go through that core flow, flexion, extension, child's pose, back to standing, but if you prefer to remain standing, you can do that as well. So feet wide or feet together, we're gonna reach the hands up over your head. We're gonna bend your knees. We're gonna support the belly on the thighs or the arms on the thighs. We're gonna find that halfway lift where we breathe in and reach the spine long. Hands press into the shins. And then exhale, we're actually gonna bend the knees, reach down, and then start to walk the hands out into a high plank. Maybe you bring the knees down onto the ground. I'm gonna do the Cobra version this time. Knees down to the ground, hug the elbows into your side, point the toes, squeeze the glutes, reach the elbows back. Take a breath in. Exhale, lower the forehead down, tuck the toes, press the body back up, either a child's pose or a downward facing dog. Take a breath in. And an exhale, sigh. If you're in downward facing dog, start to walk your hands back towards your feet, bending your knees. And if you're in a child's pose, bring yourself to a tabletop and then press yourself back so that you can come to standing at the back of the mat. So feet wide or knees together. Inhale, extend the spine. Exhale, sit bones lift, forward fold. Drop the hips, press through the feet. And then inhale, reach those hands up. Awesome, perfect. Okay, from here, we're gonna bring our hands down to the side. We're gonna walk up towards the top of the mat. We need some water, a little breather. We're gonna find a pose called Warrior One in just a moment. So if you're using your front of your mat, you're gonna step back about 3 or 4 feet with your left foot. So from here, we start at the front, step back 3 or 4 feet. We want the front shin to be reaching forward and the back heel to be reaching backwards. So we're actually gonna have that leg in a bit of a straight position. So everyone likes a little bit of a different Warrior One position. Okay? Try to keep your feet hip bone distance apart, so you don't need to be super, super wide here. Now, I want to challenge you to root through the outside edge of that left foot. Hands stay on your hips, reach your hands up over your head. So we're using the outside edge of that left foot to reach the right shin forward. Now, a tendency to happen is to extend into the mid-back, and I actually want you to see if you can bring those ribs down. So we're stacking the ribs over the hips over the feet. Reach those fingertips up. Good. My hips and my feet are relatively pointing forward. We're going to move forward into a Warrior Two position. In Warrior Two, we pivot on the left foot so that your left heel and your right heel are more in line. We can keep the same length of stance or walk the front foot forward. This back heel, though, I want you to turn inwards towards the front of your mat a little bit, and you're gonna feel like your hips are open. So this is a key point here to make sure that we keep our sit bones tucked under to stabilize that stretch the front of the leg. Okay? So our Warrior Two is a little bit more of an open position with the hips. Again, outside edge of that left foot is reaching the right shin forward. And we're going to raise the right hand over the front leg and the left hand back over top of the left ankle. Okay, let your gaze go over your right middle finger here. So even though we're in a bit of a hip stretch, our feet are always pressing down and our hands are reaching in opposite directions. So you can get that feeling of effortlessness in the neck, and in the shoulders, and in the jaw. We're letting that breath go in and out the nose, nice and slow and quiet. Good. Take your left hand, we're gonna reach it up and over your head. Pivot on your left foot. We're gonna bring ourselves into a high plank down the mat. So framing that right foot, returning to a high plank. Your choice now of core flow. So upward dog, child's dog, upward cat cow. Here, I'll do cat cow. I'll do cat cow with you. Cat cow and child's pose. You can do upward dog. So tuck the tail, lift the sit bones. Press through the toenails, round the spine. Be back to that neutral position and find that child's pose or that downward facing dog. Take a breath in. Exhale. Start to walk your hands back towards your feet. Maybe return to a tabletop before we use the hips. Push the hips back as you bend your knees. Finding that forward fold, supporting your belly or your forearms on your thighs. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, bend your knees and fold. One more time as you drop your hips. Press to your feet and reach the hands up. Okay, bringing the arms back down by your side. Walk yourself up to the top of your mat. We're going to step back into Warrior One on the right side. Sorry, left foot forward. So stepping back with your right foot. Feet are hip bone distance apart. Using the outside edge of that right foot to reach the left shin forward, we tuck the tail under. We're going to get away from this forward pelvis tilt and tuck the tail under. So root down through your feet as you reach those fingertips up nice and tall. Feel those balloons in your ribs expanding, fingertips reaching. Use the outside edge of the right foot to reach the left shin forward. One more breath in. Now we're going to come into a warrior two. We're going to pivot this right foot so the right heel and the left heel are in the same line. And you can lengthen your stance if that feels right for you. Instead of the right foot being perpendicular to the mat, we're going to turn that foot inwards and use the outside edge to press the left shin bone forward. Tuck that tail under. You're going to reach the left hand over the left thigh, the right hand over the right ankle. And then let your gaze go just past your left middle fingertip. Nice soft gaze over the left middle fingertip. So again, press down through the feet just a little bit. Can you use the feet without clenching the toes? So using the arches of the feet. So we're using the back side of the body to open up the front side, the front hips. Take one more breath in. Turn the right palm up. We're going to reach it up and over your head. We're going to make our way into a high plank or a tabletop. What is this? High plank. Mix and match. Mix and match. And your choice of core flow to link the movement. So we're going to lift the hips, pull the body under the fence. Inhale into an upward facing dog. Exhaling to a high plank. We're going to go to downward facing dog. Take one breath in, out through the mouth. And then everyone's going to meet in their version of the child's pose. So I actually prefer feet together, knees nice and wide. And then supporting the head on the fists. As long as the head is supported by something, I'm a happy camper. So in this bit of flexion at the hips, it's easy to run out of space to breathe. It's hard to breathe into the belly, it's hard to breathe into the side ribs. So press down through the ground a little bit and allow your mid back to round so that you can breathe between the spaces of the ribs, breathe between the shoulder blades, and then focus on completely emptying of air on that exhale. So again, we're using the pressure through the ground to find that space in the ribs to breathe. We'll try one more breath between the shoulder blades here. One full exhale. And whether your forehead's on the ground or stacked fists, now gently rock your head from left and right. Because your head is supported by something, we're massaging a pressure point between the eyes that helps trigger the side of the brain that's responsible for resting and recovering. So we go through all the different poses, get a little bit stronger. And then we need to actually recover from those activities, whether it was on the mat or after the mat. So when we slowly massage that point on the forehead, expand into the rib cage on the breath, and fully exhale. We're telling the body it's time to recover. Next, we're going to press ourselves up into a tabletop and swing the legs around into a seated position. We're going to go through a couple of stretches. Grab some water first if you need to. Is there anything in particular that you want stretched? Someone out there going, I need this area. Usually it's hips. Everybody says hips. Yeah. Oh, you're holding your tension in your hips. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to lean back so that we're sitting. So if you've got your sit bones, you don't know where your sit bones are, you've got our sit bones on the bottom. So you notice when Frankie here's sitting, it's those two bones that you feel when you're sitting. And what happens is sometimes we forget to sit on our sit bones. We kind of tuck under a little bit and sit back onto the pelvis. So whether you're sitting on a block or a chair, I want you to actually find your sit bones first in this cross-legged or whatever position feels right. And then also roll the pelvis forward so you feel your sit bones. So we can ground through the feet in standing. We can ground through the pelvis in seating and sitting. We can even ground, of course, when we're doing any pose, but child's pose or that final resting pose. Okay, so what I actually want you to do is the opposite of sitting up nice and proper. We're going to tuck the tail under. So we're going to find the back of the pelvis. I want you to sit up. So I want you to bring your feet up in a birthing position of sorts and walk your hands right back. This is going to make it easier to tuck the tail. What that does is it activates your core a little bit. And if you think about your pelvis, that hip bone, we want to stabilize from the front and also the back. So your hamstrings attached there. And if you flex your toes and straighten your knees a little bit, I want you to start to pull your heels towards you. You feel the muscles in the back of the knee, the back of the hamstring working. And typically this makes us want to round arch the spine. So I want you to get that pull feeling while also tucking the tail and getting your abs on. So we're stabilizing the pelvis with the hamstrings and your six pack and your obliques. Okay, so I want you to keep that position, keep your toes flexed. We're going to very gently open up the left knee to the side and then bring it back to the middle as far as it can go. Okay, so from the front, I'm going in as far as it can go and out as far as it can go. But I'm keeping my hip bones on the ground and I'm keeping this pull of the heels. So we're working the femur bone in the hips. I'm going to do that a couple times on the left. Bring that leg back in. We're going to go to the right, just the right side. Notice that the ankle stays locked. So the knee and the toes move together. You might get a little bit burny feeling in there. Don't push too far. For all these stretches, we're looking for a stretch that's a 5 out of a 10. So not a nothing's happening 1 or a dear God, my leg is ripping off 10, something in between. Okay, we're going to progress that. So again, we've got options. You can go back and forth with the left and the right, or we can open up the left and bring the right in. Keep the right hip bone on the ground. Open up the right and bring the left in. So we're transitioning side to side, nice and slow. So that's another option. And then the final option is to transition all the way over into a 90-90 position. So we can tuck that tail under, still get that feeling of using the heels to pull your body forward. We can reach the hands back, we can open up the right knee and transition to the other side. Okay, so again, getting that pull of the heel to keep the hamstrings working to stabilize the pelvis. Okay, so leaning back for that transition, or maybe going hands free. Bringing up that hip. Nice. Most people find one direction feels easier than the other. Most curlers, most right-handed curlers don't feel as good when they go to the right. We're not used to opening up the right hip. I want everyone to end on the left. Okay, so if you were doing this position, I want you to swing the legs over to the side. Don't worry about how straight or bent the knees are. Find a comfy position. So you could do the next stretch to stretch the front of the hip from here. You don't need to move any further. Okay, but feel free to if you want to try. We're going to take the left foot and attach it to our right thigh. We're going to bring this right heel as close to our hips as we feel comfortable. And again, we're going to lean back onto the hands and reach the tail under. So my left foot and my right foot are actually going to connect. They're both going to push towards each other. And again, we're going to root down through the feet and squeeze the glute. So all we're looking for is a nice little stretch at the front of this hip. You take a full breath in and a full breath out. Just squeezing this glute, connecting the foot and the thigh. So all the way out on that exhale. One more time in. And all the way out. Okay. Now repeating that, okay, as long as you feel comfortable, or we press down through the shin and the knee to lift the hips, reach the right hip towards the left corner of the mat. So again, pushing through the legs, pushing through the hands. Take a breath in. Tuck the tail, breathe all the way out. One more breath in. And all the way out. We're really relaxing the diaphragm, stabilizing the pelvis through the hip. Lower the hip down. You can unwind your legs with your hands or return to that 90-90 position and transition to the other side. So again, hanging out this position, we can tuck the tail, we can feel that stretch. We can do our inhales and our exhales from here. Or we can bring this right foot to the thigh and bring the left heel as close to your hips as you feel comfortable, walking those hands back again. So it's key to tuck that tail under so we feel the front coming forward. A glute is on. Relax and squeeze the glute. Feel the difference between the front of that hip. Okay? So connect that right foot to the left shin. Press down through the ground, breathing in. All the way, breathe out. Okay, breathing in. All the way out. It feels right. You can press through the hands to lift up the hips. Now the left hip bone's reaching towards the right corner of the mat. Again, breathing in. You can breathe up into the chest, back into the ribs, and then empty of air. Keep that connection between the right foot and the left thigh, though. That's helping to give you extra stretch to the front of that hip. One more full breath in. And out. Good. Lower the hips down. This time we're going to help ourselves unhinge the legs. Unhinge. What a great option. Okay. Unhinge the legs. So from here, we're going to lie down onto our backs. So if you're not comfortable lying on your back, you could find a couple blocks and a bolster, maybe leaning up on a couch, or being happy with being in a seated position. So I want you to find a position that feels comfortable for you, whether it's seated or lying on your back. So for the next about 10 minutes, we're focusing on relaxation. So feel free as you're going through the different poses to readjust if you find that you get uncomfortable. What we're going to do to start, if you're in a position to do so, is bring the soles of the feet together. Bend your knees and let your knees flop out to the side. So you could be in a seated position here, completing this as well.
Tiffany should give her.
Seated Cobra.
Right, and look in the bottom, middle.
So either in a seated cobbler's position or a supine cobbler's position, whatever feels comfortable for you. And wherever you are, I invite you to take your pointer finger and your thumb together in a diamond and bring the diamond below your belly button, relaxing the elbows down to the side. So again, you can find a point to stare at. Or slowly let.
Taking it, thank you.
Check with the bra on.
Way better.
So we're in this reclined cobbler's position or seated cobbler's position. Hands on the lower belly, eyes open or closed. What I invite you to do is send that breath into the lower lobes of your lungs. So we often think of this as a belly breath. When the breath goes in through the nose, in the back of the throat, into the lungs, we can fill up, typically we fill up into the chest. And I want you to fill up the lower lobes of the lungs. So maybe as you breathe in, the hands separate and rise. And as you breathe out, they sink down and they lower. So don't feel forced to keep that diamond touching. We're just framing an area where we want to send oxygen, movement, blood flow. We want you to follow 3 full breaths in and out in this position. By your own pace, Imagining that air coming in, filling the lower lobes of the lungs, moving the diaphragm so that your hands move. Feeling the air reverse as your hands sink, like squeezing out a tube of toothpaste from the bottom all the way up to the top. Getting the opportunity as we breathe deep into the lungs, not only stimulate the diaphragm and the vagus nerve, which teaches us to rest and recover, but we're also moving and helping bring movement to the inner organs, so our digestive system, our reproductive organs, which often don't move themselves without us actually forcing the organs to kind of shift to accommodate air. Once you're complete your 3 full breaths in and out, we're going to find a final resting pose. So some people love this diamond position. They can stay there, or we straighten the legs out, take up some space, shake your inner thighs out, the arms out to the side. Whether we're seated or lying down, I want you to notice all the different points of contact your body is making with the floor, the mat, or the chair below you. So you're either seated or lying down on your back. Find that final resting pose. One of the important pieces when it comes to trying to find that stillness and that relaxation is usually because we have too much tension in our body. It's hard to still the mind when the body is really active. So I invite you to fidget and get some fidgets out just for about 30 seconds. Fix your shirt, blink a lot, scratch an itch. Tell your body you're allowed to move for a little bit, and then try to commit to a position. Get nice and comfy. And just like we did at the beginning, I want you to slowly bring your attention as the body starts to slow down, and your attention into the breath. What we're going to do with the breath, we're not going to change the breath in any way. I want you to feel in your body what happens as you breathe in and then as you breathe out. So it could be a lot of movement on the inhale and the exhale, not a lot of movement. Maybe you feel where the air enters the nose, right at the tip of the nose. Notice how it's maybe a little cooler on the way in, a little warmer on the way out. Maybe your breath has a noise or a tempo. You're just going to pay attention to one element of the breath that you can follow. Just for a couple of inhales and exhales. So we'll be in this position for about 2 or 3 more minutes. Just following the breath. If you get distracted from following those inhales and exhales, I want you to first notice one or a few points of contact with the ground. And then bring your attention back to your breath. So using the literal ground to ground you before you refocus on the task. refocusing with the ground. We're bringing your attention back to that element of the breath that you're going to follow. You notice how maybe the breath has changed. Since the beginning. Neither speed, tempo, size of the breath. At the bottom of your next exhale, I invite you to let your brain, your mind, do whatever it would like for a couple of moments. We've made it focused and now we're giving it freedom. And then bring the attention back to those points of contact of your body on the ground. So we're only going to be on our backs or seated just for a couple more moments here. Feel the weight of gravity pulling your body down onto the mat. Maybe feel the weight of your clothes on your body, the temperature of the air. Blink your eyes open and then taking your thumbs over your fingers, just gently rubbing, bringing some feeling into your extremities. Okay, if your knees are bent, I invite you to straighten your legs now a little bit. You can stay bent. A bit of a forward position. Start to wiggle your fingers and your toes wherever you are. Bring some movement in. Maybe turn your head left and right. If you're lying down on your back, you can apply a little bit of pressure into the ground. A nice little massage to the back of the skull. You can swallow a couple times to see if you can relax the back of the neck. And then rotate your ankles and your wrists. I invite you to do one more full body stretch. So that can look like so many different things, however you want it to look. If you're on your back, maybe you reach your feet long, your hands up over your head, and try to lengthen the body as you take a nice full breath in. And a nice loud exhale, sigh. And go for one more full body stretch, breathing in and breathing out. The bottom of that exhale, you're going to hug the knees into your chest. So we're going to make our way to a seat in a couple of moments. If you want to get there already, you can. You've hugged your knees into your chest. We're going to take the right hand over your head and roll over onto your right side. So we're going to meet and seated in just a couple moments, but if you need a transition, you're supporting your head with your bicep. Again, feeling the weight of gravity pulling your body down onto the ground. Just taking a moment, whether you're seated or on the ground. And we're going to take the top hand, the left hand, and push yourself up into a seated position. So whatever a seated position looks like for you, it could be in a chair, it could be on a block, it could be right on the floor. Our final pose that we're going to end with has us take our palms together and rub our palms together nice and quick. So it's a nice balance between pressure of the palms and speed of the palms to create some friction and some heat. Okay, and then we're going to take that warm palm and gently, so the bones around the eyes, gently apply some pressure to the muscles around the eyes. Maybe allow your head to fall forwards a little bit. With your eyes closed, you can kind of clench and relax the eyes. With your eyes closed, you can look up and down and let the palms gently massage the eyes. You can do that looking left and right. Okay, and then we allow you to close out your practice however you'd like. So thank you for showing up today. Thank you for showing up today, not only for me, but for yourself. And if you have any questions, of course, send me an email. Take care. Namaste. Yay! Hold on.